Why do some of y'all friends, parents, uncle, auntie come to America and join the army? Is it because them just love go war? No. Them doing it for opportunities. They're like soldiers running for a country that they never won, but at the end of the day, we all want financial gain out of our talents. It makes no sense me I run or me I do something and me not get paid. Because these athletes switching are no difference than you going to work somewhere for a better pay. So these athletes switching to Turkey, yo, me not bash them. I encourage athletes to go out there and seek better opportunities for yourself. I'm telling you guys, the floodgate open and more athletes are going to leverage their talent for financial gain. Because where we are from, loyalty don't really bring you far.
All of you might have seen, all the stuff that's been going on in the media right now in regards to all these athletes that have switched allegiance and gone over to Turkiye. They've changed nationality, changed citizenship, and now the allegiance is with Turkiye in terms of competing. And yes, it is Turkiye, it's not Turkey. Do your research. The name has been changed from Turkey to Turkiye. So, give the country's culture the respect of addressing them by their proper name. Enough of that. Now, let's hear what Warren has to say. I think his name is Warren Weir, and my apologies if I butchered your surname. But let's just hear what he has to say quickly, shall we? Before I play it, actually, let me just say, 80% to 90% of what he said, I agree with. But there's that 10% where I have to push back, to be honest. So let's go.
Most of y'all read the news, see the little clips them about the Jamaican athletes who switched to Turkey. And ever so often you guys ask me my take. And hey, what's good, man? Some of them I reply to, some of them I just ignore. But may I shed my light on this one a little just because you guys have been really asking me about it. So I'll ask you this question.
Okay.
Why do some of y'all friends, parents, uncle, auntie come to America and join the army? Is it because them just love go war? No. Them doing it for opportunities.
All right, let me stop you there, Warren. Let me ask you a question. Why do you think some people that's in the military, especially, become mercenaries, where they actually, go and unalive other people in foreign countries or political enemies of billionaires and corrupt politicians? Do you think they do it because they want to, because they enjoy unaliving other people? Or do you think they do it because, they need to feed themselves and their family? Do you see the thin line? And this is why I think you comparing military to athletes is apples and oranges. Because there's a thin line between becoming a military person and doing what you described, and some of those people in the military to become mercenaries because the money is good or better. And from what I understand, the money for being a mercenary is better than the money than just being a regular soldier in the military. But continue.
Them doing it for a better way. Because at the end of the day, like, why would you get up and fight for a country that you never born? You understand?
No, I don't. Because then I'll ask the question, why would you get up? Actually, I do. I'm just being, I'm just trolling. But I don't understand what you're saying. But then I'll ask you again, why do some people get up and become mercenaries? Do they enjoy doing the mercenary work? You tell me.
That's the same concept what me I go say with the athletes them. Switching. You understand? For a better way. Yes, they're like soldiers. Running
Really?
for a country that they never won, but at the end of the day, we all want financial gain out of our talents.
I understand what you're saying there, and I kind of agree with that. Everybody wants fair compensation for their work, especially if they're at a certain level of performance, as an athlete. I agree with that, but there's a bigger picture that I don't think you're seeing, and that is, if we were to follow this trajectory to its conclusion, what will be the situation in 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now? the next generation from now, what will happen? You know what will happen? Jamaica won't have a sports industry left, because as soon as people become, of any real promise or prospects, they will be poached and they'll gone abroad. And I'll say the same thing for nurses, doctors, teachers, whatever. It's the same scenario. We see where the brain drain happens, and now we're about to witness brain drain, or should I say performance drain, an elite performance drain in Jamaica in the athletics industry, which is sad, but that's going to be the inevitability if we're going to follow your line of reasoning.
It makes no sense me I run or me I do something and me not get paid. It's only unfair. It's always unfair to athletes when people want you to do good for them, but not to do good for yourself.
So when you're doing this, aren't you doing this? When you said them, you make it sound like you're being used and exploited. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. And I'm not going to judge. But at the same time, where is the level of, honor and pride in your country?
Because these athletes switching are no difference than you going to work somewhere for a better pay. And the place where you come from give you everything.
No, I have to stop you there. I'm sorry. People who go and work in the corporate or self-employed or employed, they're doing it for money. Even though some of them might be passionate and have a sort of enjoyment in doing the job, but the primary reason is money. But when it comes to sport and representing your country, that's not primarily for money. That's for representing your country and flying the flag. But I'm not going to dismiss that at the end of the day, these high-performing athletes, or athletes for that matter, need some form of compensation for the hard work they put in. And that falls rest with the sports minister and the government of the day.
I understand that, but at the end of the day, everybody wants financial gain, because when track and field done, or when sports done, as much as you want something to show that you did it, you still want to make sure so you earn so you can move into the next part of life.
I agree with that. That sounds reasonable. That's not an unreasonable ask.
So these athletes switching to Turkey, me not bash them. I encourage athletes to go out there and seek better opportunities for yourself. Because
Whoa. I do too, but not in the way you're suggesting. I suggest that they go and seek better opportunities for themselves by getting endorsement deals, being brand ambassadors for different brands, whether it's Nike or energy drink or Puma, or, it's probably a bit unfair to use Usain Bolt, but Usain Bolt, I've seen him in London in adverts and washing up liquid adverts. I've seen him in Virgin Media adverts. So, he's pursued his own way of making things better for himself, because he realized that the logistics and the infrastructure in order to compensate him fairly as a hero in terms of sports is just non-existent. It's not there. From what I understand, it's just a handshake that can't pay the bills. But I understand what you're saying, and I did say from the beginning that I empathize with what you're saying, but there's a 10% where I have to push back. So yeah, there's many ways that you can go about making a better way rather than switching allegiance. To me, that's a big drastic step. And I must say before you go any further that I think, in my own opinion, that Asafa Powell probably opened the floodgates to this. I'm not saying he's the cause, and I tell you why. I'm going to be fair to Asafa because I've defended him a lot in the past, and I always will defend any athlete, with regards to their performance. I've done, videos on, Yohan Blake. I've done videos on Kishane Thompson. I've done, which included Asafa Powell, and I've defended those guys vehemently. But I'm just saying, I think that when you have a situation where someone with the caliber of Asafa Powell that recently made the utterance that, if he knew back then what he knew now, he would have probably made the decision and switched and performed for another country. And he obviously have his own personal reasons why he said that. But I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, now, if other athletes, upcoming athletes, who either realize that they're not going to make it to the level that Asafa Powell made it to, and Usain made it to, or they're pretty much there like a Kishane Thompson, and they're being approached secretly because we don't know. And then you have a situation where they're in a dilemma, whether to do it or not, but their own conscience is telling them, I need to, keep allegiance to my country. I can't switch. It would be embarrassing. It would be like a betrayal. It's always going to be seen as treasonous, and that's what's keeping them from doing it. Then here comes Asafa Powell that made that comment he made. And then they're thinking, shit, but if Asafa Powell is thinking that, and he reached the heights of where he reached, I'm here, fluffing about and when I should just make the switch. And I noticed that ever since he made that, a couple of weeks or so after, all of a sudden, all these people are coming out with these, switches. And okay, Turkiye is offering more money, better facilities, whatever. But there's a thing called jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. There's also something that says the grass ain't always green on the other side. And there's a third thing also that says, oh, money ain't good money. Now, that's not anything to say I'm going to put a slight on Turkiye. What I'm saying is people need to do their research on Turkiye and realize that, go look at the UN and Amnesty International reports when it comes to Turkiye, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. All the information and documentation is there for you to see. Kidnappings, all kind of thing is going on. So even those athletes, when they do it, I'm sure a lot of them, when they went over there, they're probably under 24-hour bodyguard. They're probably being chaperoned and around with some type of companion. They obviously can't go around willy-nilly as they'd like to in Jamaica, because Turkey ain't the place you think it is. And so there's also Amnesty International and UN about ethnic minority racism and racial tensions as well. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things going on there, bro. And my suspicion is these people who have made that switch before, they're not going to come out now and say we regret doing what we did, because then they look even worse. They look stupid with egg on their face, when in fact they should come out and say, listen, I made a decision and now I live to regret it, and let me just tell my people so that they don't make the mistake. Rather than that, they're embarrassed, so they keep quiet and live in the shame. They're getting the money, but I can tell you, just go do your research on Turkey, bro. That's what I'm going to tell you. That's all I have to tell you. So these new athletes who have just made the decision, I hope they did their research. I'm sure they were promised and shown the tourist areas and all the nice, stuff that will convince them to make the switch. But I hope they did their research and went to the UN official website, went to the Amnesty International official website, or even Wikipedia, and search up these information. And then I think if they read that and did their research, my personal opinion is they would have refused. I mean, I would have. But hey, they've made a decision already. They signed the contract and they're stuck now. So good luck to them. And that's all I've got to say. But they're probably going to be under 24-hour armed guard and bodyguard. And there's a lot of nuances. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to get into Turkey's politics. I really don't. Some countries, you just stay out of their politics and you don't say anything bad about their country, except what's already in the public domain in terms of Amnesty International and the UN. I'll leave it there. So yeah, I just think it's a dangerous precedent for people to start saying this. But if we look at more so-called safer countries like America, Canada, and the UK, I would say, where would that leave you when these people join the bidding process and start bidding for these athletes? They're not going to blink an eye. They're going to sign the documents and they're going to make the switch. They're going to do it, which is kind of sad. You need to stay and fight to fix the problems at home, to make it better, so you can have athletes. Imagine if this, what you're saying now, Warren, and people like you, imagine if this was the talk when Usain Bolt was very, very young. He would have made the switch, because he already said publicly that they approached him and he had mad offers, but he refused. Now imagine if this type of, messaging was strong the way it is back then when he was coming up the ranks and his name was unknown to Jamaica, much less the world, he would have been made the switch probably. Do you understand me? Because you're thinking, shit, I hear people like Donald Quarry say this, I hear people like Asafa Powell say this, and other athletes that's great before me say this. So no one gonna roast me and judge me if I make the switch. They're gonna understand that I'm just doing it because I need to get paid. Do you understand me? So I think it's a dangerous slope we're going down as Jamaicans, and I think rather than everybody thinking about, oh, we need to do this and eat some food, you need to really think about the damage and the legacy that you're leaving. And it kind of feels like a betrayal, but at the same time, I understand why they're doing it, because things back home is pretty bad. But we realize that there's a problem and it needs to be fixed.
At the end of the day, sports is a short time span. And then some sports are not as lucrative as some sports. And then some events are not even as lucrative as some events. You get me?
Yeah, but you can say that about most sports are like that. I don't understand why you use that as an example. I mean, the person who play rugby don't make the same kind of money as somebody who play in the NBA. And the person who plays in the NFL don't make the same money as somebody who, I don't know, who play some other sports like shot putting or weightlifting or something. You understand? Or gymnastics or whatever. So that is a given. That goes without saying anyway.
And I'm going to tell you the reason why Jamaicans are full vexed. Because it's not the first Jamaicans are switching to Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016 Olympics, we had two guys who represent Turkey and one guy represent Bahrain.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Okay.
One of them used to go JC, big JC athlete, and one of them used to go Ulmaz. And them two men switched to Turkey. But you guys never noticed, and no one never noticed, because these guys weren't medal, not contenders, These guys weren't Olympic or world champ medalists. These guys were what you consider some regular man who run tracks.
So therefore, they realized that they weren't going to be the next Usain Bolt, they weren't going to be the next Yohan Blake, they weren't going to be the next Asafa Powell. So they made the decision that rather than stay and represent their country, they jump ship and go to another country and, where they can get a bag. But here's the question. Did they get any medals when they made the switch? Did they win gold medals? You're still going to compete against these same people. It doesn't matter which country you jump to. You still ain't going to win no medals if you're up against these same type of people. So yes, if it's all about the money, then what that tells me is that it becomes a job. It becomes you're doing it for the money as a sports person. And I don't want to come across like I'm judging people. I don't understand people's personal circumstances. So people do things for personal reasons. But yeah, I just think Jamaica is on a very slippery slope. And again, as I say, I've seen so-called expert commentators of sports endorsing this type of movement. And I'm like, they're part of the problem, because you're helping to propagate and push the endorsement of this type of action, which inevitably will destroy the sports industry in Jamaica. Surely they must have, with all their foresight and all their critical thinking, they must have looked into themselves and say, listen, if I use my platform and I say this and people take this up and run with it, where would that leave Jamaica sports in the long run down the road? It doesn't take no rocket scientists to figure out what's going to happen if all these youths start think the same way, because we have people like Asafa Powell saying what he's saying. We have people like you, Warren, saying what you're saying. And we have other sports commentators who are supposed to be expert sportsmen or commentators in the field saying what they're saying. What the youths are going to say, well, don't judge me, don't look at me, I'm just going with the flow. I'm just going with the wave. And then what will happen is we will never get the likes of Yohan Blake again. Even Yohan Blake, I did a video saying part of the reason why he did what he did is because he didn't get the support from his country. And I don't think for him it was too much about the money. He kind of knew he had the talent to do what he did, but he didn't get the backing and the support of his country. That's his words. So therefore, and I did a video on it. So therefore, he did what he did, but he found other ways to make his money. But okay, not everybody's going to be as elite as, the Asafas and the Johans and the Usains, and I understand it. But at the end of the day, brother, if everybody start thinking like that, we won't have anybody near like these people, you know. And I don't want to leave out the women as well. You know, we would never ever have these people, because everybody will be thinking about jumping ship. Because as I say to you, even if you're not an athlete, if America right now, the embassy says the first 1,000 people that reach the embassy tomorrow get a green card or get citizenship, Jamaica will be chock-a-block. There'll be violence. There'll be police and soldier out there to part the crowd, and it'll be worse than the chicken run you see at KFC. It'll be worse than that, just to get a visa or a green card or even a citizen. Can you imagine? So I just think it's sad, but I understand where you're coming from. And Jamaicans, it just shows the desperation and the breakdown of Jamaica's infrastructure in so many places, including sports. It's really sad.
So, I'm telling you guys, the floodgate open, and more athletes are going to leverage their talent for financial gain.
Which is really sad, but that is the beginning of the end of Jamaica's sports industry, because this is exactly what America, Canada, and Britain wants to hear. And now people are going to sit there and say, yeah, that's good. Now me have a way to get into America and get into Canada and get into the UK. Selfish. The country you're born in, that afford you the privilege and support you and train you and nurture you. And then when you reach that level of performance now, where others are looking at you, now you want to jump ship and turn your back on your country for money? I'm sorry, if I'm the only one standing up and disagreeing what everybody is saying, well, I'll be the only one standing up and say it. Because I can see in the long run where this is not good for Jamaica's sports industry. I can't see where's the win situation here, except for the athlete who is just chasing a bag. And as I say, I understand it, given the current climate. Boy, if a man hungry and him, I do what I have to do. But then, like I use the mercenary situation, if that's going to be the predetermined be-all and end-all, then we might as well be honest with ourselves up front and say, listen, I'm only it for the bag, you know. And as soon as somebody give me a bigger bag and offer me a bigger bag, I gone. And if that's the case, most coaches, most companies will not endorse and support these athletes, because they're realizing that, hang on, if I pump money and invest in this athlete, if I train and nurture this athlete, and as soon as him get the offer, I'm turning back and him run gone, brother, why would they waste years and years and time and energy training that person only for them to jump ship? That's not fair. I understand the money side, but what about the other side?
Because where we are from, loyalty don't really bring you far. You understand? Wow. Because in my aspect of when I say that, I don't mean say you can't be loyal. But what I say is, if you have your talent, you can't confuse talent and tell a man to be loyal with him talent if him not eat food for him family.
You're contradicting yourself there. You can't have both. You either be loyal and fight for something, or you go for the bag. Because if you're going to go for the bag, what that means is loyalty gone out the window. You can't say you're going to chase the bag because, boy, you have to feed your family and all of that. And I understand it. Don't get me wrong. I do understand it. But then be honest and say the bag you got to chase. But don't say, boy, me loyal, you know. But me got to chase the bag too. So you know what? See you later, sayonara, and you're gone. No, you turn your back and you're gone because of the money I deal with. These coaches and all these other people and all the other industry and partners that's involved, it's going to feel some type of way. And the next set of athletes coming up, they're going to pull back and say, boy, I'm going to pump some money, they're not athletes, you know. But boy, the way the climate is, as soon as them get a break, them gone, you know. So, me not see the point in investing and supporting these athletes at all. That's my 2 cents on that.
So yeah,